An entire city vanished beneath the earth for centuries. This is Derinkuyu, a massive underground metropolis carved to hide 20,000 people. By the end of this journey, you will understand how an ancient civilization engineered a secret world capable of surviving for generations. We will uncover who built this labyrinth and what profound fears drove them so deep into the rock. What does it truly take for a community to disappear without a trace? This soft stone holds a secret whispered by volcanoes millions of years ago. Ancient eruptions across what is now Turkey blanketed the region in a thick, fine layer of ash. Over immense stretches of time, this ash compressed and cemented into a rock with a remarkable duality. It is firm enough to hold the weight of an entire city carved within it, yet soft enough to be worked with simple bronze and iron tools. This material is called tuff, and it became the foundational canvas for Cappadocia's hidden world. Think of it not as digging through dense granite, but more like sculpting a giant, solid block of hardened clay. The relative ease of carving meant that communities could expand their subterranean dwellings gradually, generation by generation, adapting the space to their evolving needs. This geological gift provided more than just workable material, however. The tuff's natural properties created a stable, temperature-controlled environment, cool in the scorching summer and insulated against the bitter winter cold above. It was this perfect storm of geology and human ingenuity that transformed a volcanic aftermath into a sanctuary, setting the physical stage for one of history's most ambitious hiding places. A simple home renovation in 1963 would shatter the quiet understanding of history. A local man knocking down a wall in his cellar watched as part of the stone gave way to reveal not more earth but a dark, gaping void. The air that whispered from that opening was cool and ancient, carrying the scent of undisturbed time. His curiosity, that most human of impulses, overcame any hesitation. He widened the hole, lowered a lamp, and peered into a passage that curved away into blackness. This was no forgotten root cellar or old well. The walls were smoothly carved, the ceiling arched, and the tunnel descended with a purposeful slope. He had not found a hole in the ground, he had found a door. Those first tentative steps into the darkness revealed a single room, then a corridor leading to another and another. Narrow air shafts, perfectly vertical, pierced up toward the distant surface, proving this was engineered for long-term habitation. Word of the find spread quickly from a local oddity to a matter for government archaeologists. As teams brought proper lights and equipment into the initial chambers, the true magnitude began to dawn on them. Each new tunnel branched into more rooms, each level descended to another, a seemingly endless stone honeycomb. What began as a curious homeowner investigating a strange hole in his wall became the systematic unmasking of an entire buried civilization. It serves as a powerful reminder that our past is not always lost in distant deserts or deep jungles. Sometimes it is hidden directly beneath the floorboards of the present, waiting for a single, ordinary moment of discovery to bring it back into the light. The scale of this discovery slowly came into focus as archaeologists began to map the void. Derinkuyu is not a single cavern or a haphazard collection of tunnels. It is a meticulously planned vertical city, a true architectural marvel carved with a profound purpose. Think of it as the blueprint for an entire subterranean society, a testament to an ancient chief engineer's mind. This hidden world extends approximately 85 meters deep, the equivalent of stacking an 8-story building underground, with each level serving a distinct and vital role in a grand plan for communal survival. The upper floors were the heart of daily life, featuring family living quarters, communal kitchens, and spaces for worship. As you descend, the environment shifts to support the city's longevity. Deeper levels housed extensive storerooms for grains and preserved foods, workshops, and even wineries with carved stone vats for fermentation. One of the most striking spaces is a cruciform church, a place of solace and community carved in the shape of a cross found deep within the earth. This layout reveals a sophisticated understanding far beyond mere shelter. Every element was orchestrated for life in perpetual darkness. Narrow corridors could be easily defended, and critical passageways were secured by massive, circular stone doors. These slabs, weighing several hundred kilograms each, could be rolled into place from the inside, sealing off entire sections from any threat. They functioned like ancient vault doors, and their presence at key junctures shows that security was woven into the very fabric of the city's design. This was not just a hiding place, it was a functioning, organized society designed to preserve the essence of civilization itself when the world above became uninhabitable. The architecture speaks of a community that planned not just for weeks or months, but potentially for generations, ensuring that their way of life, their faith, and their identity could endure deep within the silent, protective embrace of the stone. The true genius of Derinkuyu lies not in its carved rooms, but in the invisible systems that gave them life. A stone city of 20,000 people presents two immediate and fatal problems: the slow suffocation of stale air and the creeping threat of thirst. The builders solved both with solutions of elegant, quiet brilliance. Scattered throughout the complex, over 50 vertical shafts were drilled with painstaking precision, up through 85 meters of solid rock to the surface above. These were not simple holes, they were engineered airways. Their design created a natural circulation, drawing fresh air down into the deepest chambers while allowing warm, spent air to rise and escape. This constant, gentle breath prevented the atmosphere from becoming toxic, allowed for cooking fires without smoke inhalation, and did so all while the openings at the surface were disguised among the natural rocky landscape. It was a hidden lung for the entire city, operating in complete silence. Water presented an even greater challenge, as any supply from the surface could be easily poisoned or cut off by a besieging force. The answer was found far below their feet. The architects located and tapped into a deep underground aquifer, a natural water table flowing within the earth itself. They carved a massive, dedicated well shaft that descended to this secret source, creating a private, secure water supply entirely independent of the world above. This was a self-contained circulatory system, with the ventilation shafts as the lungs and the aquifer as the heart, pumping the essential elements of life throughout the stone body of the city. This integration of air and water management reveals a sophisticated understanding of hydrogeology, the study of how water moves through rock and soil. It transforms our understanding of Derinkuyu from a desperate bolt hole into a calculated, long-term habitat. The community was not just hiding, they were ensuring their civilization could continue its heartbeat, steady and unseen, for as long as the darkness required. This level of foresight asks a deeper question of us. What does it mean to design a world meant to be forgotten? Yet all of this engineering genius would be meaningless without a final, fail-safe defense. The most iconic features of Derinkuyu are not its spacious halls or deep wells, but its silent guardians, the massive circular stone doors. Carved from single blocks of that soft volcanic tuff, these monolithic wheels were positioned at the narrowest points of key passageways. From the inside, a small team could roll one across the corridor, its curved edge fitting perfectly into a carved groove in the floor and ceiling, creating an immovable seal. In an instant, a bustling thoroughfare became a dead end, a solid wall of rock. But these doors were not just passive barriers. At the center of each slab, a small, carefully drilled hole served a dual purpose. It was a peephole, allowing defenders to assess the threat on the other side without revealing themselves. And in a moment of dire need, it could become a lethal portal. a means to confront an invader with a spear thrust while the defenders remained safely behind tons of stone. This simple design transformed the entire city into a defensive puzzle. If a hostile force ever managed to find an entrance and fight their way inside, they would not be met in an open battle. Instead, they would be funneled into dark, twisting corridors, only to find their path abruptly blocked. The defenders, knowing their own labyrinth intimately, could then retreat to a higher or lower level, sealing door after door behind them, compartmentalizing the threat. The invaders would be left trapped in a silent, dark stone maze, vulnerable to counterattack from hidden passages or simply stranded without light or direction. These rolling doors were the ultimate expression of defensive control. They turned the city's greatest vulnerability, its limited entrances, into its greatest strength, allowing a small number of defenders to protect an entire population by mastering the terrain. It was a strategy that understood a profound truth, that in the darkness, knowledge of the maze is more powerful than any sword. But who were the people who chose to live within this stone labyrinth? The enduring mystery of Derinkuyu is not just how it was built, but who built it and why they felt such a profound need to vanish. Historians and archaeologists have sifted through the silent evidence, piecing together clues from the city's very architecture. The presence of the large, ornate cruciform church points strongly to an early Christian community. This aligns with the historical turbulence of the region, a crossroads of empires for centuries. From the Roman era onward, religious and political conflict sent waves of persecution across Anatolia. For communities of faith, finding a refuge was not a matter of convenience, it was a matter of existence. The most compelling theory suggests that Derinkuyu's initial expansion into a true city likely began around the 7th or 8th century, a period when Byzantine Christians faced intense pressure from invading forces. The city's design is a blueprint of profound fear, but also of incredible resilience. It speaks of a people who refused to abandon their way of life, choosing instead to literally carve it into the bedrock, preserving their culture, their worship, and their community in perpetual twilight. They were not hermits seeking isolation. They were an entire society choosing collective invisibility over assimilation or conflict. Their identity became the city itself, a hidden kingdom defined by its secrecy and its astonishing will to endure. This understanding transforms the cold stone corridors into something more. They become a testament to the human spirit's refusal to be erased, a physical manifestation of the hope that a community can outlast any storm if it is willing to build its world anew, deep in the hidden heart of the earth. But survival is a fragile state, and the architects of Derinkuyu understood a deeper truth. A hidden city cannot live on fear and stored grain alone. It must also have a heartbeat, a rhythm of daily life that sustains the spirit as well as the body. This is why the discovery of its economic engine room is so revealing. Far below the surface, amidst the defensive corridors and living quarters, archaeologists uncovered clear evidence of industry. They found not just storage pits, but carved stone vats and deep basins unmistakably designed as wine presses. The presence of fermentation tanks nearby completes the picture, a full production line for creating wine in the perpetual twilight. This single detail shifts our entire understanding. Viticulture is not a practice of desperation. It is an art of patience and tradition. Growing grapes, even small amounts, requires planning seasons in advance, pressing the fruit, and carefully monitoring the slow fermentation process. This was not about mere sustenance. Wine offered calories, yes, but more importantly, it held profound cultural and ritual significance. It was a staple of communal meals, a part of religious ceremony, and a valuable commodity that could be traded if safe passage to the surface ever became possible. Alongside this, evidence of small livestock pens on certain levels suggests the keeping of goats or sheep, providing not just meat but also milk, cheese, and wool. Together, these facilities reveal an economy of circular creation. Grain from the storerooms could feed people and animals, whose waste could fertilize whatever meager crops might be grown in hidden surface plots or perhaps even in specialized chambers, and the animals themselves provided materials for clothing and tools. This was a system designed for renewal, not just depletion. It tells us that life underground was envisioned with a sense of continuity. The community was not just waiting for the danger above to pass. They were actively building a parallel world where the essential threads of their culture, from the sharing of a cup of wine to the rhythms of husbandry, could continue unabated. In the deepest dark, they chose not just to exist, but to cultivate the very things that made their existence meaningful. Even in the deepest darkness, a community must hold onto its light. The Cruciform Church of Derinkuyu is that light carved in stone, a profound declaration that survival is about more than just breathe and bread. Found several levels down, this sanctuary is not a small niche or a makeshift altar. It is a full, architecturally deliberate church, its floor plan painstakingly excavated into the recognizable shape of a cross, with arms extending into the shadows. Its walls are smooth, its ceilings arched, and its spaces include a central nave, side aisles, and even a baptismal font, a carved basin for the sacred rite of initiation. In a world devoid of sun, stars, or seasons, this space provided the ultimate anchors of time and meaning. Here, the rhythms of prayer, the observance of holy days, and the ceremonies marking birth, union, and loss would have continued with solemn regularity. The familiar rituals, the chanting of psalms echoing off the cool stone, the shared silence of contemplation, these were the threads that wove individual fear into collective strength. This sacred chamber was the spiritual and social nucleus of the entire underground world. It was where the community gathered not out of fear of an external threat, but out of a shared need for hope, identity, and continuity. In protecting this space, the builders made their most important statement. They were not merely preserving lives, they were safeguarding a civilization's soul, ensuring that their values, their stories, and their connection to something greater than themselves would endure unchanged, passed from one generation to the next in the unwavering quiet beneath the earth. The church was their compass, a fixed point of orientation in a world of perpetual night, reminding every individual that they were part of a story much larger than the stone that surrounded them. The identity of the master architect remains one of Derinkuyu's most compelling secrets. While the Cruciform Church tells a clear story of later Christian use, the question of who first conceived of this vast subterranean world points to a much deeper past. The sheer scale and sophistication of the engineering suggest it was not the work of a single generation or even a single civilization, but rather a project that grew over centuries, perhaps even millennia. Some researchers look to the Phrygians, a powerful Iron Age kingdom that flourished in this region around the 8th to 7th centuries before the Common Era. Known for their monumental rock-cut facades and tombs, the Phrygians possessed both the technical skill and the societal organization to undertake such an ambitious underground project. Their world was one of rising and falling kingdoms, where creating a secure refuge would have been a strategic necessity. Yet other scholars trace the origins even further back to the Hittites, an empire that dominated Anatolia nearly 2,000 years before the Common Era. The Hittites were master builders of fortified cities and had a profound understanding of stonework and water management, principles that are undeniably present in Derinkuyu's design. This theory suggests the city's first chambers may be astonishingly ancient, a seed of an idea planted in the Bronze Age. The most likely truth is that Derinkuyu is a historical palimpsest, a manuscript written and rewritten over time. Imagine a single, deep well or a small cluster of storage rooms carved by Hittite settlers for protection. Centuries later, Phrygian builders, discovering this existing foundation, might have expanded it into a more complex hideout. Then, generations after that, early Christian communities, facing their own periods of hardship, would have found this pre-carved sanctuary and dramatically enlarged it into the full city we see today, adding their churches and refining the ventilation. Each wave of inhabitants did not start from scratch. They built upon the fear and ingenuity of those who came before, adapting the stone to their own era's threats. This layered history makes Derinkuyu not a monument to one people, but a universal testament to a shared human impulse, the profound need for a place of safety when the world above grows dark. The decision to abandon the sun was never made lightly. What forces could drive an entire community to choose a life of perpetual twilight within the stone? The answer lies not in a single event, but in the relentless geography of fear that defined the Anatolian plateau for centuries. Derinkuyu sits at a historic crossroads, a fertile region that was also a highway for empires. This made the surface world profoundly unstable, a place where the horizon could bring either a trading caravan or an invading army with equal unpredictability. The city's design reflects defense against a brutal roster of existential threats. Organized military campaigns like those of the Persians or later the Mongols sought conquest and tribute, sweeping across the land and consuming resources. In their wake came smaller but no less devastating bands of raiders looking for plunder. For a settled community, either scenario meant potential loss of freedom, livelihood, or life itself. Furthermore, as the region became a melting pot of faiths, periods of intense religious discord arose. For early Christian communities, among others, these conflicts sometimes escalated into targeted hardship, making a visible house of worship above ground a dangerous beacon. Derinkuyu, therefore, was not built for a one-time crisis. It functioned as a perpetual insurance policy, a foundational part of the community's long-term strategy. When sentinels posted in hidden surface lookouts spotted dust clouds on the horizon or received word of approaching turmoil, the entire population had a practiced, orderly response. They could gather their essentials, drive their livestock into the carved pens below, and vanish within hours, rolling the great stone doors shut behind them. The world above could burn, conquer, or transform, while below, the heartbeat of their civilization continued, steady and unseen. This transforms the city from a mere shelter into a brilliant adaptation, a societal shock absorber built directly into the landscape, allowing culture and community to persist through eras that would have otherwise erased them. Derinkuyu stands as a masterpiece, but it was never meant to be a solitary fortress. To understand its true purpose, we must widen our view beyond its stone walls. This hidden city was just one node in a vast subterranean network spread across the Cappadocian landscape. Hundreds of other underground settlements, large and small, are carved into the same soft volcanic rock, forming a hidden geography of refuge. The most famous of these neighbors is Kaymaklı, another multi-level city lying several kilometers away. Remarkably, archaeological surveys suggest the two were once connected by a long, fortified tunnel, a secret highway beneath the earth. This connection is profound. It reveals a strategy that moved beyond isolated survival toward a collective, regional defense. Imagine the implication. If one city was discovered or compromised, its population could evacuate through this hidden artery to reinforce or find shelter in another. It was a mutual aid pact carved in stone. Comparing these complexes shows a fascinating spectrum of design. Some were indeed smaller, perhaps extended family dwellings or monastic retreats, with just a few rooms and a simple air shaft. Others, like Kaymaklı, are expansive in their own right, though often laid out differently, with wider, lower-ceilinged levels compared to Derinkuyu's deeper, vertical design. This variety tells us that the knowledge of underground construction was not a secret held by one master engineer, but a shared cultural toolkit, passed down and adapted by different communities over generations. Each settlement solved the same core problems of air, water, and defense, but with local variations that suited their specific needs and the contours of their particular piece of rock. What unified them was a foundational belief, a cultural understanding forged by repeated hardship, that true safety did not lie in towering walls upon the hilltops, but in disappearing into the earth itself. This network transforms our understanding of ancient Cappadocia. The surface, with its villages and farms, was only one layer of a much more complex society. Beneath the feet of traders and farmers existed a parallel world, a shadow civilization ready to activate at a moment's notice. The landscape was essentially double-layered, with the sunlit world of daily life existing in a fragile balance with the permanent, prepared sanctuary below. This was not a society living in constant fear, but one that had institutionalized preparedness, weaving the possibility of disappearance into the very fabric of their culture. The hidden tunnels connecting these cities were more than passageways. They were the nervous system of this underground world, allowing communication, trade in secrecy, and the movement of people in times of crisis. It paints a picture of resilience so deeply embedded that it became architectural, a silent testament to a people who chose to build their security not upward toward the sky, but downward into the enduring, protective darkness. Hiding 20,000 people requires more than just stone doors. It demands a society of perfect silence. The true architecture of Derinkuyu was not carved from tuff, but forged from an unbreakable social contract. Every single resident, from the eldest elder to the youngest child, became a guardian of the secret. Their most powerful weapon was not a spear, but their collective discretion. This meant that the city's physical entrances, those critical vulnerabilities, were masterfully woven into the fabric of mundane, everyday life above. A ventilation shaft might open inside a humble shepherd's hut, its opening cleverly masked by a woven mat or a pile of firewood. A primary entrance could be hidden beneath the stone floor of a common kitchen, concealed by a heavy grinding mill or a large storage jar. From the surface, these were just ordinary homes, their true purpose known only to those who lived within them. The deception had to be flawless, extending to every sensory detail. Think of the immense logistical challenge. The faint glow of 1,000 oil lamps from dozens of air shafts at night would have been a beacon to any watchful enemy. So, light discipline was absolute, likely requiring the use of shielded lamps or designated blackout periods. The sounds of life, the echoes of thousands of voices, animals, and industry, could not be allowed to drift up to the surface. This suggests that certain noisy activities, like the grinding of grain or the forging of tools, were strictly regulated to deep, insulated chambers or specific times. Even waste had to be managed with stealth, likely processed in sealed pits far from the fresh air supply. This level of coordination speaks to a community operating with military precision under a shared, desperate purpose. A single lapse, a child's story told to an outsider, a glimmer of light seen from a distant hill could doom everyone. Therefore, the culture of the hidden city was necessarily one of profound internal trust and external paranoia. Their survival depended on the world above seeing only a quiet, perhaps even poor, rural village, completely unaware of the thriving metropolis lying in wait just beneath its feet. In this way, every citizen became both a resident and a sentry, their commitment to the secret as vital to the city's integrity as the deepest well or the strongest rolling stone. The silence they kept was the true foundation upon which their entire world was built. The story of Derinkuyu is measured not in years, but in centuries of whispered need. Its timeline is not a single narrative, but a tapestry woven from threads of intermittent refuge, each era finding its own urgent reason to descend into the waiting stone. While its deepest origins are shrouded, some scholars trace the first chisel marks to the Hittite era, over 3,000 years ago, suggesting the initial idea of subterranean safety was born in the Bronze Age. This foundational space, perhaps just a deep well and a few storage chambers, then waited. Centuries later, new hands would find it. During the tumultuous periods of Persian and Roman dominance, as empires clashed over the Anatolian plateau, local communities likely expanded these hidden rooms, carving out additional space as a hedge against the uncertainty that swept across the land above. The stone preserved their additions layer upon silent layer. The city's most defining chapter, however, unfolded between the 7th and 10th centuries of the Common Era. This was the period of intense conflict as Byzantine Christians faced a series of incursions. For these communities, Derinkuyu was not an ancient curiosity, it was a providential sanctuary. They undertook the most dramatic expansions, transforming the existing hideout into the vast, multi-level metropolis we recognize today. They carved the great churches, the extensive wineries, and refined the ventilation to support a population in the thousands. The city's design perfectly answered the specific challenges of their time, allowing faith and community to endure unseen. But even after this peak, the story did not end. In the 1920s, during the profound upheavals that reshaped the region, there are compelling accounts that Greek families, caught in the difficult transitions of population exchanges, sought temporary shelter within its familiar, protective depths one final time. This long chronology reveals a profound truth about Derinkuyu. It was never truly abandoned, only waiting. Each generation that rediscovered its dark corridors did not see a relic, they saw a solution, a pre-built answer to a fear that tragically never seems to grow old. The city stands as a hauntingly timeless response to a timeless human dilemma, the search for a place of safety when the world you know becomes a place you can no longer safely inhabit. Its value was not locked in a single moment of history, but in its enduring readiness, a silent promise carved in stone, waiting in the dark for whenever the light above grew too dangerous to bear. The silent stone of Derinkuyu was never meant to hold only the echoes of footsteps. In the centuries after its final abandonment, a new kind of inhabitant moved into the void left by history, the spirit of story. Without written records to explain its origins, the local imagination began to fill the dark corridors with its own light. Folklore blossomed around the hidden city, weaving tales that sought to explain its impossible scale and profound secrecy. Some whispered that the depths were not empty at all, but home to jinn, powerful spirits of fire and air, who claimed the abandoned halls as their own realm. This was a practical warning as much as a myth, a cultural safeguard to keep curious children and treasure hunters from venturing too far into the unstable, pitch-black tunnels. Other stories spoke of vast treasures left behind by fleeing communities, chests of gold and jewels hidden in sealed chambers, guarded by ancient curses or clever traps. These tales of hidden wealth reflect a universal human fascination, the dream of finding a forgotten fortune, but they also hint at a deeper truth, the recognition that what the builders valued most, their safety and their way of life, was a treasure that could not be carried away. The most poetic of these legends attributes the city's creation not to generations of laborers, but to a single, wise and powerful king. In this version, facing an imminent invasion, the ruler called upon supernatural aid. With the help of magical beings or divine intervention, the entire labyrinth was carved in a single, miraculous night, a gift of sanctuary delivered by forces beyond human understanding. This myth, while historically impossible, is profoundly revealing. When faced with an achievement that stretches the limits of belief, the human mind often reaches for the magical. It is an attempt to compress centuries of collective effort, fear, and ingenuity into a single, comprehensible story of wonder. These folk tales are far more than simple superstition. They are a vital layer of Derinkuyu's legacy. They represent the enduring conversation between a people and their landscape, a way of making sense of the monumental past that sleeps beneath their homes. The city lives a double life, one in the measured pages of archaeological reports, and another in the vibrant, whispered stories told around hearths, ensuring that long after the last resident descended, Derinkuyu never truly left the living world above. Yet the silent stone of Derinkuyu has not surrendered all its secrets to myth. Modern archaeology has given us new eyes to see into the dark, using tools that listen to the whispers of the past without ever touching a wall. The delicate work of understanding this fragile city begins with mapping its immense, complex void, a task that would have taken generations with measuring tapes and sketches. Today, teams use three-dimensional laser scanners. These devices sweep a chamber with millions of precise laser points, building a perfect digital replica in minutes, capturing every contour, every tool mark, and every irregularity in the rock. This creates an immortal record, a map so accurate it allows researchers to study the city's layout from anywhere in the world, analyzing airflow patterns or defensive sightlines with a few clicks. But the exploration goes beyond what we can already see. To peer into the surrounding Earth, scientists employ ground-penetrating radar. This technology sends pulses of energy into the ground, listening for the echoes that bounce back from changes in density. It is like giving the landscape an X-ray, revealing tantalizing hints of what might still lie hidden: blocked passageways, collapsed chambers, or even entirely new levels that have remained sealed for a millennium. These ghostly signatures on a screen are promises of future discovery, suggesting that the known city may only be a part of a much larger hidden world. The science then turns microscopic, examining the very atmosphere the ancients breathed. By carefully analyzing the layers of ancient soot clinging to ceilings around old lamp niches, researchers can identify the types of fuels used: oils from olives or animal fats, telling a story of resource availability and trade. Minute studies of pottery residues reveal traces of meals, grains, legumes, and even fermented drinks, painting a detailed picture of the subterranean diet. Each artifact, from a broken spindle wall to a worn step, is a data point, a fragment of a story waiting to be reassembled. This fusion of high-tech scanning and precise laboratory work transforms Derinkuyu from a static monument into a living dataset. It allows us to ask questions the original builders could never have anticipated we would pose. We can now model the exact physics of their ventilation shafts to understand the efficiency of their invisible lungs. We can trace the genetic material left on grinding stones to learn about the crops they prized. Each technological advance is like a new key, fitting into a lock carved centuries ago, slowly swinging open a door to a deeper understanding of how 20,000 people did not just survive in the dark, but cultivated a complete and resilient world beneath our feet. But the air within Derinkuyu was never still or stale. The city's hidden genius was in making the earth itself breathe for its inhabitants. Without a single fan or modern machine, the architects engineered a perfect passive climate control system, a masterpiece of environmental harmony achieved centuries before the term sustainability was ever coined. The foundation of this system was the immense thermal mass of the surrounding volcanic tuff. This dense rock acts like a giant thermal battery, absorbing excess heat and cold with incredible slowness. In the scorching Cappadocian summer, when surface temperatures could soar, the heat simply could not penetrate quickly through 85 meters of solid stone. Conversely, during the bitter winter, the cold from above was absorbed and moderated by the deep, inherent warmth of the Earth's interior. The result was a year-round ambient temperature that hovered in the low to mid-50s Fahrenheit, a constant, cool cellar-like environment. This was not just about human comfort, though it certainly provided a profound respite. This stable temperature was the key to long-term survival. Food stores, grains, dried legumes, and preserved goods would not spoil quickly in such a consistent chill. Wine in the fermentation vats could age properly. The very longevity of the community's supplies was guaranteed by the rock's unwavering thermal inertia. This stable temperature was then animated by the city's hidden lungs, the network of ventilation shafts. Their placement and design were not random. By carving shafts of differing depths and connecting them to various levels of the city, the engineers created a natural pressure differential. Warm air, being lighter, would rise through certain shafts and escape at the surface, while cooler, denser air was drawn down through other intakes. This created a gentle, continuous convection current, a silent river of air flowing through the entire complex. It carried away humidity, smoke from lamps and cooking fires, and the carbon dioxide from thousands of lungs, replacing it with fresh, oxygenated air from the world above. The shafts even helped regulate moisture, preventing the dampness that could lead to mold in a sealed underground space. This was climate control in its purest, most elegant form, leveraging basic principles of physics, the behavior of air and heat, that the builders observed and mastered. They turned the Earth's own properties into a life support system. There were no dials to turn, no fuel to burn, and no complex parts that could break. The system was the architecture itself, operating perpetually on the free energy of temperature difference and gravity. In an age of intensive energy consumption, Derinkuyu stands as a quiet but monumental lesson in passive design. It achieved a habitable, preserved environment not by conquering nature with technology, but by intelligently collaborating with it. The builders asked a simple, profound question: how can we use what is already here to solve our problem? Their answer was to listen to the rock and the air, and to design a space that worked with those elements, not against them. This intrinsic sustainability meant the city could remain viable for generations without depleting any resource except the patience and vigilance of its people. It represents a pinnacle of pre-industrial engineering, where comfort and preservation were achieved through deep understanding and clever adaptation. A reminder that sometimes the most advanced solution is also the simplest, written not in code or on a blueprint, but carved directly into the enduring heart of the earth. The engineering marvels of Derinkuyu would have meant nothing without an equally sophisticated human system. Governing 20,000 people in a sealed, pressurized environment is a social experiment of the highest order, a test of human nature conducted in total darkness. While no written code of laws has been found carved into the walls, the city's very survival speaks to a social order of remarkable resilience and clarity. We can infer that a clear hierarchy must have emerged, not necessarily based on wealth or birth, but on function and necessity. Religious leaders would have provided spiritual guidance and moral cohesion, their authority drawn from the Cruciform church deep in the rock. Military or security captains would have been responsible for manning the rolling stone doors, organizing watch rotations, and drilling the population on emergency protocols. And crucially, a class of administrators, perhaps elders or elected stewards, would have managed the most vital resource of all, the distribution of food and water from the communal stores. This was not a suggestion, it was a matter of life and death for the entire city. In such a closed system, every calorie was accounted for, every sip of water from the deep well was a shared trust. Hoarding or theft would not be a simple crime, it would be an existential threat, a betrayal that could unravel the delicate balance keeping everyone alive. The enforcement of this social contract was likely absolute, but its power came from collective understanding more than sheer punishment. Everyone, from the youngest child to the oldest elder, knew that their individual survival was inextricably linked to the well-being of the whole. This created a culture where cooperation was not just virtuous, it was mandatory, antisocial behavior, whether violent disputes, refusal to perform essential duties, or spreading dissent, could not be tolerated. It would have been addressed swiftly, perhaps through community mediation or removal from general living areas to isolated chambers, because a single spark of conflict in that oxygen-limited world risked igniting a fire that could consume everyone. This pressure cooker environment undoubtedly forged an intense, almost familial solidarity. Shared hardship has a way of erasing old surface world divisions, binding people together with a common purpose stronger than any stone door. They celebrated holy days in their underground church, shared meals from the common stores, and told stories to pass the timeless nights, all acts that reinforced their identity as one people, facing the darkness together. Yet human nature is complex. The same pressures that create unbreakable bonds can also breed resentment, paranoia, and hidden tensions. The stress of perpetual confinement, the fear of the unknown world above, and the monotony of a sunless existence must have weighed heavily on the human spirit. The social engineering of Derinkuyu, the unspoken rules, roles, and rituals that maintained order, was therefore as critical to the city's longevity as its air shafts and water well. It was the invisible architecture holding up the world, ensuring that 20,000 hearts, with all their hopes, fears, and flaws, could beat as one in the silent dark for as long as necessary. The true defensive genius of Derinkuyu may lie in what we cannot yet see. Among the most tantalizing theories whispered by archaeologists is the possibility of a hidden artery, a tunnel stretching nearly 8 kilometers through the bedrock, connecting this city directly to its neighbor, Kaymaklı. While this passage has not been fully excavated or conclusively verified, its potential existence transforms our entire understanding of this underground world. It suggests these were not isolated, desperate strongholds, but nodes in a coordinated, regional defense network. Imagine the strategic power this would have granted. If scouts reported an imminent threat approaching Derinkuyu, the entire population could enact a planned exodus, moving through this secret stone highway to reinforce Kaymaklı. Conversely, if one city's food stores ran low or its water source was compromised, aid could flow from the other. This connection turns individual survival into collective resilience, a shared burden that would make each community far stronger than the sum of its parts. The very idea of such a tunnel implies a staggering level of long-term planning and inter-community trust. Carving a secure, navigable passage of that length through solid rock is a generational project, one that would require a shared vision extending far beyond any single crisis. It speaks of formal agreements, of shared labor, and of a unified recognition that their greatest security lay in their connection to one another, even if that connection was buried in absolute darkness. This transforms the narrative from one of isolated hiding to one of integrated subterranean territory. Instead of a map dotted with independent bolt holes, we must begin to picture an entire hidden landscape, a second, secret layer of civilization where people, information, and resources could move unseen beneath the feet of any surface power. Investigating these rumored connections, perhaps with ground-penetrating radar or cautious, targeted excavation, could fundamentally rewrite our understanding of ancient regional strategy. It would reveal a society that had so thoroughly institutionalized the concept of retreat that they built an alternative geography for it, a silent, stone network ensuring that even in their disappearance, they would never truly be alone. The stone doors could seal out an army, but they could not block the slow, creeping pressure of the dark. For the people of Derinkuyu, the greatest siege was not from an external enemy, but from within their own minds. Imagine the psychological landscape, not for a night or a week, but for months or even years. 20,000 souls lived in a world without sunrise or sunset, without horizon or weather, a perpetual twilight broken only by the flicker of oil lamps. The air, though fresh, would have carried the constant, close scent of damp rock, packed earth, and humanity. Personal space was a forgotten luxury, with families sharing cramped quarters, the sounds of neighbors a constant murmur through thin rock walls. In this environment, fear was not a fleeting emotion. It was a background hum, the silent, shared anxiety of what might be happening in the world above, and the ever-present question of if and when they could ever return to it. This was a perfect recipe for despair, for the kind of profound stress that could unravel a community from the inside out, making their magnificent fortress a tomb of the spirit long before any physical threat reached them. Their survival, therefore, required a different kind of architecture, one built not from tough, but from routine, meaning, and connection. The physical design of the city provided the essential framework for this mental fortitude. The communal kitchens were not just places to prepare food, they were hubs of daily interaction where the sharing of a meal became a ritual of normalcy. The shared labor of grinding grain, maintaining the air shafts, or tending to the underground livestock pens imposed a vital structure on timeless days, giving each person a purposeful role and a tangible contribution to the collective good. This was more than just work, it was a therapeutic anchor, a way to focus anxious energy on a concrete, positive task. But the true heart of their psychological defense was found in the spaces dedicated to the spirit and the story. The Cruciform church was their sanctuary in every sense. Within its carved walls, the familiar rhythms of prayer, hymn, and ceremony provided a profound sense of order and hope. It connected them to something eternal, a powerful reminder that their identity and values transcended their temporary, sunless prison. Here, they could collectively express their fears and their faith, transforming individual anxiety into shared solace. Equally vital was the ancient, flickering light of the storyteller. In the dim quarters after the day's labors, elders would have recounted the old tales, myths of their people, histories of past hardships overcome, and legends of heroes and kings. This was not mere entertainment, it was a lifeline. Storytelling preserved their culture, passing language, values, and history to the children who knew no other world. It provided escape, allowing minds to travel to sun-drenched mountains and starlit skies even while their bodies remained in the rock. Perhaps most importantly, it fostered a crucial narrative, the story of themselves as a resilient people, a community chosen to endure, to protect the flame of their civilization in the world's darkest cellar. This shared narrative was the glue that held their sanity together. It transformed their confinement from a random punishment into a sacred mission. Understanding this psychological dimension completes our picture of Derinkuyu. It was not just an engineering feat or a military redoubt. It was a carefully sustained ecosystem for the human psyche, a place where every carved space, from the grand church to the humble family niche, was part of a conscious design to preserve not just bodies, but minds, relationships, and the very soul of a community under a weight of pressure few of us can truly fathom. Their greatest victory was not outlasting a siege, but refusing to let the darkness conquer their light. Even the deepest sanctuary is not meant to be eternal. The silent corridors of Derinkuyu, which had echoed with life for generations, eventually fell still. This was not a sudden catastrophe, a collapse or a conquest that forced the people out. Instead, it was a slow, quiet victory. Over centuries, the very conditions that had made the city necessary began to change. With the rise and consolidation of the Ottoman Empire, and later the establishment of the modern Turkish Republic, a new kind of order settled over the Anatolian plateau. Centralized states, with their professional armies and administrative control, gradually reduced the chaotic, localized conflicts and raids that had made life on the surface so perilous. Warfare itself evolved, becoming less about plundering civilian settlements and more about clashes between organized forces. The profound, existential fear that had once sent entire communities scrambling below ground began to recede, replaced by a fragile but growing sense of security. Life above the rock was becoming livable again. This shift was so gradual that no single person likely made the definitive decision to leave for good. It was a generational drift. Families might have used the upper levels for cool storage during hot summers, a practical echo of its original purpose, while making their permanent homes in new villages under the open sky. The great stone doors, once rolled shut in urgency, were now simply left ajar, then eventually sealed by time and debris. The intricate knowledge of the labyrinth's layout, once a matter of life and death taught to every child, slowly faded. It condensed into local lore, stories told by grandparents of a vast, mysterious city beneath the hills, its exact entrances forgotten, its purpose blurring into legend. In this light, the abandonment of Derinkuyu is not a story of defeat, but one of profound hope fulfilled. The city succeeded in its ultimate mission, to preserve a people until the storm passed. Its empty halls are not a monument to fear, but a testament to resilience, a physical promise that was finally able to be broken. The community it sheltered did not vanish. They simply walked back into the sunlight, carrying their culture forward into a world that, at long last, allowed them to build their homes upon the ground instead of within it. The greatest triumph of this hidden fortress was ultimately that its people no longer needed it. The silent city has found a powerful new voice in the stories we tell ourselves. Long after its stone doors were sealed by time, Derinkuyu began a second life, not in the rock, but in the realm of modern imagination. Its awe-inspiring scale and profound purpose have made it a magnetic symbol in our global culture, a real-world touchstone for themes of ultimate secrecy and resilience. In documentaries, its shadowy corridors are explored with hushed reverence, the camera's light revealing the architectural genius to millions who may never set foot in Turkey. But the city's influence stretches far beyond factual retellings. It blooms in the pages of speculative fiction, where authors reimagine its depths as sanctuaries in dystopian futures or as ancient strongholds guarding forgotten truth. For many, its most recognizable cousin is the fictional mines of Moria from J.R.R. Tolkien's Legendarium, that vast, lost dwarven kingdom carved under the misty mountains. While Tolkien drew from broader mythological wells, the parallel is unmistakable, a testament to how the human mind instinctively reaches for a place like Derinkuyu when conjuring images of an entire civilization thriving in subterranean exile. This cultural translation extends into interactive worlds as well. Video game designers crafting narratives about survival after global catastrophe or exploring ancient ruins often model their hidden bunkers and lost cities on the principles so perfectly demonstrated here: independent air supplies, rolling stone barriers, and layered communal spaces. Each of these artistic interpretations, while taking creative liberties, performs a vital act of preservation. They introduce the essence of Derinkuyu to audiences who might never open an archaeology textbook, framing its story within universal narratives of adventure, secrecy, and the enduring human spirit. In this way, the city escapes the confines of its physical location and historical period. It becomes a living archetype, a shared reference point in our collective consciousness for the idea of a world within the world. Every novel that uses it as inspiration, every game level that echoes its labyrinthine design, extends its legacy. The stone metropolis is no longer just a relic of past fear. It is an evergreen symbol of ingenuity and adaptation. Its story continually retold and recontextualized for new generations facing their own uncertainties. The hidden city, in its cultural afterlife, achieves a kind of immortality, ensuring that the lessons carved into its rock continue to resonate wherever people dream of building shelters, keeping secrets, or simply enduring against the longest odds. The very breath of a modern visitor now poses a subtle threat to the ancient stone. After surviving centuries of conflict, Derinkuyu faces a new and paradoxical challenge: the sheer weight of our admiration. The soft volcanic tuff that made its construction possible is also its greatest vulnerability. Every day, the presence of hundreds, sometimes thousands, of tourists inside the enclosed spaces alters the delicate environment that has preserved the city for so long. The humidity from human breath and perspiration accumulates in the still air, slowly absorbing into the porous walls. This moisture can encourage the growth of microscopic algae or salt crystals, which over time can cause the carved surfaces to crumble and flake away. Even more insidious is the carbon dioxide we exhale, which, in high concentrations, can form a weak acidic solution when combined with moisture, a process that etches away at the very fabric of the ancient corridors. It is a silent, invisible siege where the footprints of curiosity leave a chemical signature that could, over decades, erase the delicate tool marks left by the original builders. The city's greatest strength, its hidden, stable climate, is now being disrupted by the very people who come to marvel at its creation. This presents conservationists with a profound dilemma. How do you share a priceless, fragile wonder with the world without allowing the world to slowly destroy it? The answer lies not in closing the doors, but in re-engineering the experience of discovery itself. To protect the stone, modern engineers have installed a new kind of life support system. Carefully regulated ventilation now works alongside the ancient shafts, actively cycling air to control humidity and carbon dioxide levels. Lighting is strictly limited to cold, low-emission sources that do not generate heat, placed on pathways to minimize direct exposure on historically sensitive walls. Visitors are guided along controlled routes on protective walkways, preventing the erosion of original floors and keeping curious hands from touching surfaces coated with the oils of human skin. Every measure is a negotiation between access and preservation, a constant calculation to ensure that the gentle tide of visitors does not become a corrosive flood. This ongoing effort is a new chapter in the city's long story, one where humanity's role has shifted from seeking refuge within the stone to becoming its guardian. The challenge is no longer about hiding from a threat, but about managing our own presence, ensuring that this testament to human resilience endures not just as a memory, but as a physical place where future generations can stand in the quiet dark and feel the echo of history, not just hear about it. The deepest secrets of Derinkuyu are still sealed behind walls of fallen rock and centuries of silt. While visitors today can explore a staggering labyrinth, they walk through only a portion of the full city. Archaeologists estimate that roughly half of the known levels remain inaccessible, their chambers choked with debris from controlled collapses or natural shifts in the earth over the long years of abandonment. This means the map we have is incomplete, a tantalizing glimpse of a world that may extend even further into the darkness. What lies in those unexcavated depths? The possibilities stir the imagination. Could there be a grander, more ornate central hall, a place of assembly for the entire hidden population? Perhaps deeper, more sophisticated water collection systems or vast, undiscovered storerooms that could rewrite our understanding of the city's logistical capacity. Some researchers even wonder about the potential for a scriptorium, a space dedicated to preserving texts where scrolls or coded records might have been kept safe from the turmoil above. While such a find would be extraordinary, the simple truth is that every cubic meter of untouched debris holds a story. A single pottery shard, a forgotten tool, or a layer of organic material in a sealed room could provide the crucial data needed to finally date the city's earliest phases with precision, answering the enduring question of who first broke ground here. This potential for discovery is what keeps the mystery vibrantly alive. Derinkuyu is not a closed book resting on a museum shelf. It is an active archaeological site where each new season of careful work, each sifted bucket of earth, holds the promise of a revelation. A future team working with ever more sensitive technology might one day clear a blocked corridor and shine a light into a chamber untouched since the day its last resident rolled the stone door shut. That moment of discovery is a quiet contract between the past and the present, a reminder that history is not always about what we already know, but about what patiently waits just beyond the reach of our current light for its turn to be understood. The wisdom of the hidden city is not locked in its past, but speaks directly to the challenges of our present. In an era of climate uncertainty and complex global pressures, Derinkuyu's ancient engineering offers a quiet masterclass in passive, sustainable design. Its entire existence was a triumph of working with nature, not against it. The builders leveraged the Earth's own thermal mass and simple principles of air convection to create a stable, habitable environment without consuming a single ounce of fuel. This is not a primitive workaround, it is a profound principle that modern architects are urgently revisiting. Today's most forward-thinking sustainable buildings employ similar concepts of geothermal cooling, natural ventilation, and thermal mass to drastically reduce energy needs. Derinkuyu stands as a monumental, thousand-year-old proof of concept, showing us that resilience can be built into the very bones of a structure, creating comfort and preservation through intelligent design rather than constant consumption. It asks us a vital question in our pursuit of technological solutions. Have we overlooked the elegant, enduring answers that are already present in the world around us? Beyond its physical architecture, the city's true blueprint was social. Its survival for generations in a sealed environment demonstrates a powerful model of community cohesion under extreme pressure. In Derinkuyu, individual well-being was inextricably linked to the health of the whole. The fair distribution of resources from communal stores, the shared labor of maintaining essential systems, and the collective commitment to silence and secrecy were not optional virtues, they were the non-negotiable pillars of existence. This offers a stark contrast to modern crisis responses that can often emphasize individual stockpiling over communal strategy. The hidden city's success reminds us that during prolonged hardship, the most critical infrastructure is not made of concrete or wire, but of trust, clear communication, and a shared sense of purpose. It shows that a society's ability to endure is not just measured by the supplies in its warehouses, but by the strength of the social contracts between its people. Ultimately, Derinkuyu represents a pinnacle of long-term, intergenerational thinking. Its construction was not a reaction to a single emergency, but a calculated investment in future security, carved over decades or even centuries. The builders planted an oak tree whose shade they knew they might never sit under, creating a sanctuary for their grandchildren's grandchildren. This mindset of profound foresight, of planning for scenarios that may not unfold for 100 years, feels almost alien in our fast-paced world of quarterly reports and short news cycles. Yet, facing our own long-term challenges, from environmental shifts to the stewardship of resources, this ancient example challenges us to expand our horizon of responsibility. It urges us to consider what we are building now, not for next year, but for the next century. What sanctuaries of sustainability, what foundations of social trust are we carving into the bedrock of our own civilization? The silent city does not give us a manual, but it offers a compass, pointing toward the timeless values of ingenuity, cooperation, and deep time wisdom that have always been the true cornerstones of enduring any storm. Derinkuyu stands as a monumental whisper from the past, a story carved in stone of human fear, ingenuity, and the unyielding will to survive. We began with a simple hole in a cellar wall, an accidental crack in time that revealed an entire world waiting in silence. From there, we descended through levels of breathtaking innovation, from the silent breath of its ventilation shafts to the deep, secret pulse of its aquifer. We saw not just a fortress, but a functioning society with churches, wineries, and rolling stone doors, a complete civilization designed to persist in perpetual twilight. The city's true architecture was both physical and social, a masterclass in environmental harmony, and a powerful testament to the unbreakable bonds of community under pressure. This hidden metropolis is far more than a historical curiosity. It is a mirror. It reflects our own timeless capacities for adaptation, for collective action, and for the profound foresight to build sanctuaries not just for ourselves, but for generations we will never meet. The stone asks us what we value enough to protect, and what we are willing to create together when the horizon darkens. As we emerge from this journey back into the light, we carry a simple, powerful realization. Sometimes the most enduring strength is not found in towering monuments under the sun, but in the quiet, collaborative spaces we carve in the face of adversity, in the hidden heart of the earth, and in the unspoken trust between neighbors. If this descent into a hidden world captivated you, consider subscribing for more journeys into history's greatest puzzles, and we would love to hear your thoughts. What other secrets do you believe the silent earth still holds? Share your ideas in the comments below.